The Cat Who Saved the Library by Sosuke Natsukawa. English translation by Louise Heel Kawai. Read by Kevin Shen. Prologue. How It All Began. Recently, books had been disappearing, or at least that's what it looked like. Nanami folded her skinny arms and stared at the bookshelves in front of her. She mulled over the evidence. Books were apparently vanishing from the library. Her use of the phrases "looked like" and "apparently" was because it was hard to prove. This old library had a huge collection of books, and as the primary job of a library wasn't to keep all the books neat and dust-free on the shelves, but to lend out as many to the public as possible. Obviously, not all of the books were there all of the time. If Nanami had been a librarian, she could have checked the book's lending history. Or if she'd been a brilliant detective, she might have been able to solve the mystery by her powers of deduction. But, unfortunately, she was just an 8th grade student who liked to drop by the library on her way home from school. Nanami had been visiting this library ever since she was a little girl. Back then, it was her father who used to bring her, and, thanks to him, she had got into the habit of coming every single day. This meant that she was very familiar with the arrangement of books, and had immediately spotted that something was different. When it came to her beloved library, she was confident that her memory was at least more accurate than the head librarian's, and possibly even more brilliant than a detective's. The first thing that had caught her attention was the gaps here and there on the shelves. After a while, she realized that those spaces were never refilled. They remained gaps. Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island was missing from the children's fiction section. The beautiful white-spined copy of Anne of Green Gables and the adventure story of Captain Nemo and his 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea were also never returned. Over in the picture book section, 2 of Nanami's favorites, Mr. Owl and Frederick, were nowhere to be seen. A stroll by the literary fiction shelves revealed that both Hesse's Beneath the Wheel and Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea were gone. In fact, on every shelf throughout the library were empty spaces that hadn't been there before. Nanami had wondered for a moment whether people had just started borrowing more books. Then she swiftly dismissed that thought. This was a large-scale library with an extensive collection of books, but it was no modern state-of-the-art facility. The building itself was dilapidated. The air conditioning barely worked. There were dark corners where the light bulbs had burned out, and here and there a musty smell assaulted your nose. In other words, there was no reason for the number of users to increase. And it was clear just from looking that the library's spacious aisles were as deserted as ever. What struck Nanami as curious was that none of the adults in the library seemed to have noticed anything. The staff were always too occupied with paperwork to have spotted any changes in their environment. "What's going on?" Nanami mused out loud. Of course, just because she'd dared to ask the question aloud didn't mean that she'd get an answer. She stood still in one central spot and swiveled slowly around to scan the whole floor. From a distance, the tall metal shelves seemed to be as tightly packed as ever, but when she walked along the aisles, she saw the gaps here and there like pulled teeth. Perhaps it was because Nanami was so familiar with the library that she noticed this phenomenon. To her, the changes were undeniable. The books were definitely gone. "You're saying I need to check on the books?" The voice of elderly Mr. Hamura, the librarian at the main reception desk, wasn't all that loud, but as the ground floor had a high vaulted ceiling, his words reverberated through the whole library. Still, with so few patrons, it wasn't as if anyone was there to hear it. Just one older woman who happened to be passing threw Nanami and Mr. Hamura a quick glance. Nanami tried to keep her tone as casual as possible. "Yeah, some books are missing that should be there. More than just 1 or 2. Mr. Hamura peered over his reading glasses at the young girl in the school uniform. "I see.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?